don't diminish your activities because they're old or because they're non-clinical. The Old PreMeds Podcast, session number 313. Welcome to the Old PreMeds Podcast. My name is Dr. Ryan Gray, your host here every week, where I take your questions from our PreMed Hangout. Remember now, it's the PreMed Hangout, and answer them here on the podcast. Today, we're answering a question about age of volunteer experiences, and does that really matter? Before we jump in, though, I want to talk about the MCAT Minutes brought to you by Blueprint MCAT. As this episode is coming out, it is the end of September, and MCAT registration for next year opens up in just a few weeks. So if you are taking the MCAT at the beginning of next year, start preparing. Make sure you have credit card money or money on a debit card. Make sure you have money to pay the AAMC because they are going to want to take it now. Make sure that you have your plan all laid out, that you have a date that you want to take the MCAT. Remember, we recommend kind of January to April of the year that you are going to apply, which is the year before you're going to start medical school. And as you do all of that, go to blueprintmcat.com, sign up for their free account, and get access to their amazing free study planner tools so that you have all of that laid out for you. Again, that's blueprintmcat.com, and make sure you have some money to go sign up for that MCAT. Go register as soon as they open up because spaces are limited, unfortunately, at the testing centers. So let's go ahead and jump into our question today. Our student has a question about how far back experiences can be. And she asks, would a volunteer work counts? How far back can we count it? I'm a nurse and have lots of clinical experience and several volunteer experiences dating back 20 years. But my most recent volunteer work is giving COVID vaccines and now fostering dogs for a dog rescue. Lost at what counts and what I should leave out. This is such a common issue for non-traditional students, especially super non-trads who have been out in the workforce, whether clinical or non-clinical, for many years. What counts to put on an application? And the answer is, it all counts. It all counts. The general rule of thumb is anything post-high school. Now, for you super non-trads out there, that means that some of your experiences may be 20 years old, going back to your college years, your early college years, or maybe even post-college, your early work years if you've been in your career for 15 or 20 years. It all counts. The goal of that activity section is to, number one, show that you've been getting clinical experience and shadowing and the things that show the admissions committee that you understand what you're getting yourself into and how you can then talk about it in your personal statement and interviews and all of that. So that's number one. So clinical experience, shadowing, you got it. And that time can go back 15, 20 years, especially as a nurse. You've been working as in a clinical field for many, 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 many years. And that's awesome. That doesn't diminish the fact that it's great clinical experience, even if it's 20 years ago. Now, there would potentially be a different conversation if the context was, hey, I was a CNA in college for a year, and I haven't done anything clinical for 19 years. Can I use my CNA experience from 20 years ago as my only clinical experience applying to medical school? That's a very different context. So that would be a very different story, very different answer. But the answer is, for this specific question, how old can activities be? They can go back to high school. So post-high school is generally the answer given. The activity section is there to show that you have been doing the things to prove to yourself, to first and foremost, and then show the medical schools that you want to be a doctor. And then it's also there to kind of fill out a timeline. What have you been doing with your time? I worked with a non-traditional student a few years ago. He was a reapplicant. He showed me his initial application, his first application to school, and he only had like 3 or 4 things on his application. They were all medically related. I'm like, you've been out of school for like 11 years and this timeline only shows 2 years of stuff. What did you do the rest of the time? He goes, oh, I was doing non-medical stuff, so I didn't put it on. I was like, no, it goes on the application. Non-medical stuff is just as important as medical stuff. All of the experiences show who you are. They're an opportunity to show the medical schools who you are and what you bring to the class. And so don't diminish your activities because they're old or because they're non-clinical. Take all of the experiences that you've had, show how you've impacted them, how they've impacted you, and show the admissions committee who you are. That activity section is the best place for that. So for all of you super non-trads out there, make sure you're doing your best in those 15 spots specifically for AMCAS. Make sure you're doing your best to have a full, complete timeline of what you've been doing post high school. And that may mean you have to combine some things. That may mean some smaller things just get left out, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be 100% complete and accurate timeline or resume. It's highlighting the things that you want to highlight to show the admissions committee who you are. I hope this was helpful for you. Don't forget to check out Blueprint MCAT to go get that free amazing study planner tool with their free account so that you can start prepping for the MCAT in the best possible way. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time here on the Old PreMeds Podcast.